All right, how you doing, everybody? My name's Matt Curran, and today I'm pretty excited about emailing the Convene First Responder community leader, Charles Swearingen. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing good, too. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, short story. Might not be too short, but I'm Charlie Swearingen. I am an educator, a flight paramedic, a lover of science and building knowledge base so that we can actually take care of our patients better and better with each evolution of each different experience. I am a U.S. national volleyball player. I have prosthetics, so I play the Paralympic version of the game and went to Rio. And long story short, I love playing volleyball. I love being a flight paramedic and a critical care clinician, and I love being a teacher. And I want to be able to get out the things that I've learned, just like you. The things that I've learned, I want to be able to share with other people so that they don't have to kind of trip over the things I trip over. They can at least have a little bit of a stronger foundation to stand on as they go through those same kind of experiences.
Absolutely. So real quick, tell everybody how you and I met. So we met a couple years ago.
So I walked into this bar. Oh, wait, sorry. Wrong story.
Wrong story. Hold that one. Don't tell that one.
So we worked, Matt and I worked for the same air medical company, and I was working in Oklahoma, and we had another pilot that night. It was you. And so both of us started just chit-chatting. I think we have a similar constitution, similar drive in life, what we want to do and accomplish, at least the same directions. And we started talking. It was like the more that we talked, the more that there was things that were similar that we wanted to accomplish. And then all of a sudden, I told you about my business and what I do, and you told me about your business and what you were looking to do. And man, we've been talking for years.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to actually get some of this, to get some of this stuff done. For a long time, I haven't been able to give you a whole lot of time, and recently I'm leaving to train full time with USA Volleyball and work on my business on the side, and a little bit in a lot more work. And so I'm actually glad that we did meet, and I'm glad that you haven't gotten rid of me, and that now we're actually getting the opportunity to turn the screws on this.
Yeah, that's right. I think that was all the way back in like 2013 or 2014, and that was
Yep.
long. I remember the first night we met. That was a long night because we stayed up to the wee hours of the night just talking about training and the things that we do. So that's pretty cool. And talking about sports too, about playing baseball.
Yep.
and volleyball and all the things both of us have done in the past. So, but I think both of you and I, we have a passion for training. We have a passion for, helping people through, not make the same mistakes that we make, just like you just said earlier. Mine is crew resource management. Yours is much more in the first responder and helping out, paramedics and EMS. So tell us a little bit specifically about what is your training and what kind of things are you doing now with your training?
What I hope that I'm known for, and if not, then I'm just going to turn the screws even more and really try to focus on it, is everything that I do. I mean, ultimately, the 10,000-foot view is I train nurses and paramedics how to be flight nurses and flight paramedics. That's my goal, because I was able to achieve that early because I had early in a career, because I had people that were just fantastic reservoirs of knowledge and shared that with me openly, and I was able to learn a little bit faster and stand on their shoulders, so to speak, at the same time respecting their experiences. So that's what I try to turn my focus on in my training, is to be able to replicate that same thing in a more formal fashion. And that's I want nurses and paramedics to be able to get there easier, faster, more efficient than it took me. And I was only able to do that same thing because there were great people who helped me out. And it's just kind of passing it forward. I mean, the whole thing of biology, when we get into genetics, I mean, all it is passing the message, right? Passing the message forward. So that's my training is designed and to be that a formal version of that from an academic standpoint. But what I really want to be known for is scenario-based. I want most of what I do is scenario-based. If you look at any of our podcasts, any of our live Facebook posts, anything that we put out, even in our textbooks, every bit of them come with a huge section of actual cases that are real cases that we put into problems, and you have to work out. And we have the answers because we know the people who experience them, and we were able to dig deep and know that was right or wrong, and really talk about it. And so everything I've ever done is scenario based. So, I mean, which is why, what you're putting together, your system here is going to give me a platform to be able to do that on a much grander level. So that's my training. Is I like to push people to become better, to earn their goals of reaching a flight paramedic or flight nurse status, and then also be able to not just getting the flight suit. I say this all the time. Getting the flight suit is not the end, is not the finish line. That's the starting line, right? So how do you stay current? How do you stay sharp? Repetition. What does that mean in the medical world? It means practice with scenario until when you are faced with something in real world. And I'm not military, but you are. I am an athlete just like you. So I think this is where, when I say this analogy, it makes sense. Bottom line, when you're faced with something that is a very tough situation, you fall back on your training.
Absolutely.
That's what we do as clinicians. That's what you did as a Marine. That's what I've always done as a volleyball player. I don't have time to think about anything when I'm playing. When I'm getting set and I see two blockers and maybe one guy's a little slower, then I have two options. I can hit around him, I can hit on top of him, I can hit on the other side of him. And there's no thinking about it. It's instinct. It's reaction from all the training you've done, relying on your training. So through scenarios, I hope to achieve helping other people get to their goals, get to their starting line.
Well, and that's why we hit it off that first night, because we had that exact same conversation. And I've been going out for a long time speaking about decision making and about human error. And the bottom line is, how do we learn how to make better decisions? Well, you learn how to make better decisions by putting yourself into situations and going through that, and making mistakes and making good decisions and sharing it. So you're right. The app for me, First Responders is really where the app started. It was a big part of where the app started, and obviously it's expanded way past that to life and everything else. But First Responders is where it all started, and it is because that's how we train, that's how we learn. And when I've been in a lot of calls, just as you've been on a lot of calls, and I'm just a pilot, I'm sitting there watching, but you guys are faced with these extraordinary situations each and every day, and you have to work through them. And, you want to have been there and done that before you get into the real situation, and so I applaud what you do. And I think, sharing these experiences, and everybody has different experiences. And that's one of the beautiful things about the app, is that we want everybody to share experiences, but we want, experts like yourself to be sharing the experiences as well. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And you said something that really rings true. And as an educator, and I see people, and they're terrified to go do simulation, they're terrified to get into tough calls. Yet, but they this is what they wanted to do, and it is hard. But here's the thing: that the people and there's some people who aren't scared at all. There's people who are terrified all the time. For the group that is ever worried, you got to understand that fear, that worry, is just a hint that, hey, maybe we need to study a little bit. Maybe we need to look up something a little bit, because the only way to become an expert and to not be afraid is to, is become an expert. The only way to do that is to know all the different ways to fail at something.
Absolutely.
So that you can avoid them. That's all an expert is, right? So I love what you said there.
Well, when I go and teach a class, I ask that question. One of the main questions I ask right up front is, I said, what's an expert? And the answer is, it's a person who's failed in every domain that they can possibly fail in. And they learn through those experiences. So I agree with you totally. You don't want a bunch of failure, especially as a first responder, but you want to be in those situations and learn from your experiences and learn from your mistakes. Well, if you can put them in a situation and let them learn from somebody else's situation before they get there, then hopefully it'll help them through the process, and I think that's what you do. Sure. That's it. That's what your book is. That's what your experiences will be within Convene, and it's going to be, it's going to be really good. So, I'm excited you're going to be the community leader, because this is what you do. You and I do the same thing. And so I think we're really going to be able to expand it. So knowing what you know about Convene and Convene First Responders, what do you hope we can do with Convene First Responders?
If we're talking about carrying forward what we just mentioned in our little conversation about becoming expert, being, learning from other people, I think the critical step, and I've learned this from years as an educator, is that the person learning has got to understand the difference between the right and the wrong part, and it's got to be explained to some degree, but you can't just read that. You have to go through a decision-making process, and you have to get it wrong. Otherwise, you don't know that you were wrong. First time I ever gave morphine, my paramedic preceptor handed me the meds, and here, go and give this. And he told me, well, how much? And then he turned around, and then the syringe was empty, right? So it was about 4 times as much as he should have gotten. And then he said, how much did you give? I said, all of it. He's like, okay. He turns around, he hands me a bag-mouth mask, ambu bag, and he says, well, he's going to stop breathing in about 10 seconds, and you got it until then, because this is what you've done, and you need to know, never do this again. And so we walked into the ER. Guess what I'm doing? I'm just bagging away, and they're like, everybody freaked out, and they're like, what's going on? And the paramedic was just like, he just gave too much medicine, but he's going to stay here and breathe for him until he starts breathing again, or unless you guys want to intubate him. That's your call. So they made me for about 14 minutes. I'm breathing for this guy before he finally started taking another breath. And I was just like, okay, too much morphine means they're stopped breathing. And it was a connection immediately. So I think that, what I want out of Convene First Responders is ultimately to put somebody, give them a situation, not just read it and then go read the answer. You have to type something in. And that's the biggest thing is, like, too often, in today's world, in our day to day, when we go on Facebook or we go on the internet and we're, YouTube, we just want to click and just sit back and watch, and I get that, but we need to know that to learn, we have to actually do something. So if you read the case and you type in your answer from the question, and then you see if you were right or not, and not be afraid if you're wrong. Who cares if you're wrong? Especially in the case of your app, is that there's nobody's judging you. It's just you, and that's what the race is about. Life is all about the race against yourself. That's it. And so if you type in and you make a mistake, and then you're exposed to, hey, a lot of people may say this is right, but it's wrong. This is the right answer, and this is why. And again, this is why this is right. This is why this is wrong, and this is the learning piece. I think that if you highlight that, and the other piece of making sure that they're actually doing something to make a decision. Okay, I think that this is the right answer. Nope, it's not. Okay, crap.
Yep.
We'll just read why it's right, and then that's it. And I think that's the biggest. That's the difference between any other forum out there. That's the difference between any other application that offers a group of people coming together, is that the difference here is you actually give somebody an opportunity to type in something that's wrong. And that's what, honestly, I hope everybody does more often than not, because if you get it right every time, then you've reached expert level. But until you do that, you can't call yourself an expert. Keep working. And that should be something we're scared of. Who cares if we fail? Let's fail so we can become closer to become an expert. So that's why I like where we're going with your product.
Yeah, and I think that's key, so there's a big part of the app that has some anonymity to it, right? So when you go in and put your answers and you're inside the experience, nobody knows it's you. So just answer the best you can. Just be honest. Put what you would do. We ask the who, what, when, where, why questions. We don't ask the yes or no questions. If I ask you a yes or no question, do I know that you understand it? Absolutely not. So we want to ask the question where you have to put an answer. And if you get it wrong, nobody knows you got it wrong. We'll talk about it and we'll discuss it. You'll go through a lessons learned from the author, and then you go into the discussion board and continue the education part of it. And I think that's the way it's laid out, and that's the way it's perfect. You got to make the mistakes. You got to go through the process, and you can learn from others. Here's one of the things that is beautiful, that people have so many different levels of experience. And just because you answered one way and I answered another way does not mean that both of us are wrong. It could be we were both right. And so that's very important. And it could be that, I could be coming just out of school and my book smart I could be right on what the book says. You're coming from a little bit different direction because you're coming from your experience level, because you've been there and you've done that. Well, let's marry the two together. Let's work together. So that's a beautiful thing of it,
Yep.
So I think that's great. So hopefully what we can do is we can, your classes are great. I'm going to have a class on there about crew resource management. But what about other people? We want other content providers, and I think between the two of us, we know when first responder world, we know some other content providers. So what do you think about that group wise?
first responders is a big. I mean, like for my little domain here, it's broad. Like I think a couple of things that I've done is critical care, but I've also created a couple that were more simplistic. And here recently, drafting a couple things where one case and there's different series of questions. One for the first responder, one for the EMT basic, one for the firefighter, one for the paramedic, one for the and just give a good spectrum so that it's one case and everybody gets to answer some questions. I think that's really the biggest thing here is that if we're going to add more people, then we need to focus on the different groups. We can make one case simple, but we also need to apply bringing in. I know 20 firefighters right now that are close friends of mine that would probably at least 2 or 3 would chomp the bit to lead that little subgroup, right? And then talk about what it's like to approach a fire, attack a house fire. I mean, how do you look at it? How do you approach? You see fire here, fire there. There's again, I'm speaking ignorantly now because I have no idea how to do this, but how to approach that and different. I mean, if the thing collapses, you see in movies all the time. The building collapses, somebody runs in and goes save somebody. Is that right? If somebody is going to do that, then what is the right answer? Or do you never do that? And let's put people in decision making. So I think all we got to do is reach out to our network. And those people who are listening here, if you are a firefighter, if you're a police officer, if you're a first responder, anything in the relative realm of first responders, reach out to us. And let's create a couple cases. Everybody here that's listening to this has 1 or 2 of their favorite calls. And if we all just put 1 or 2 cases up, it would be hundreds and hundreds of cases that you could choose from or be forced to do, or not forced, but be prompted to do. And how much can we learn from that? I mean, we don't do this as a group. And that's one thing with humans is our whole goal, our whole genetic structure is to pass on genes. That's what, the whole thing of having children is passing on genes, passing on a message. Let's pass on a message, what we're designed to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd, though. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but you're right. Because, guys like myself, guys like you who are trainers, training officers, trainers. I mean, this application can be used in any firehouse, any EMS unit, any police department, any sheriff's department, you name it, it can be used. I mean, and I hope that people at least take a good hard look at it and, create a group. And within that group, create subgroups and subgroups and subgroups and use this. Because if you're doing scenario-based training out there in the real world, which everybody is doing scenario-based training out in the real world, you don't have an unlimited budget to go out and just run scenario after scenario. You don't have the time to go run scenario after scenario. So this is a great piece of gear, and it is set up from how I trained and you've trained, but how I trained in the military. It was all scenario-based training, and we were training for war, and we were training on how we actually did it when we got into that real live war situation. So I again, I hope a lot of people just take a look at it. But I think again, first responders is where it's at. It's where it all started. So I couldn't be more excited than to have you and an expert like you to be leading this charge. So I appreciate it. And it all goes back to that.
I'm pretty humbled about it. I'm excited to do it. I don't want to lay down.
Yeah. So look, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we won't make this too long. But hey, if you have questions, you can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Charles, and you can ask questions. So look, we really want you to be a big part of Convene First Responders and the other communities as well. But just Convene First Responders, I think it could be big. So what's on the horizon for you, real quick? What do you got scheduled?
Well, I'm a USA volleyball player. We're about to go actually to Italy and then Amsterdam. Made the World Championship roster, so I'm excited to. Again, I was in the military. I literally had an opportunity to go into the Air National Guard, but I got the opportunity for volleyball, and it's one of those things that it's still. My wife knows this. It's still one of those things that I wish that a part of me, every man in my family has been military, and I couldn't get in at 18. They wouldn't take me. I tried. With prosthetics, but I do get to wear USA on my chest and represent us in a different light, and I'm very, very excited and proud to do that. And humbled, incredibly humbled that, when I realized that someone had to pay, fly me to go to Italy for a big tournament that is the World Championship. So that's big. We have a lot of big courses coming up with education specialists is my company. We're going a couple places. I told you earlier. Now my wife's on the other side of the computer. She's going to hear this one, and I wasn't ready to tell her. But Malta, of course, Iceland, Taiwan is on the table right now that we're trying to work out a deal for, and all over the country. And it's just exploding. And that's just what, again, I don't want to kill people's wallets. I just want to come out and do some good training. If you hear me one time, I mean, then tell me you don't like it. But when I go out and we talk, and then people understand that I'm not just one of those people that I don't need a script. I go out and I teach, and if people ask me questions, I give them a very direct answer. I'm a redneck from Mississippi, by the way, and so I keep it real simple, right? I have to, but I don't, but what that comes is like, if I can explain something very simple to somebody who doesn't understand it, then they understand. They can go on and learn, deeper levels. That's my goal. I do it through scenario-based training, which is again why I love your app. And anyway, that's what we do. That's what I do with my company, and I'm excited to go all around the world and all around the country and do that with them. So if you're interested, if you're listening to this, give us a holler. But I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be here with Matt, because Matt's I never want to say this to your face. I mean, like, you're pretty badass. You if you get a chance to listen to Matt, you need to go listen to him at these conferences. His crew resource management is awesome. So, but yeah, I'm excited about the next couple of months.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. You mentioned that about the military, but look, so you and I probably feel the same way. But I could not imagine. I've done it as a Marine, but I can't imagine standing up and listening to the national anthem for your country. So that to me that's awesome. You can't even beat that. But that's pretty cool. So it's my favorite moment of every match, dude. Absolutely.
It really is. I mean, it's just silent little moment. And I think my dad was Air Force for 17 years, Master Sergeant. My uncle was in the Navy. All my men in my family have supported it. So this is what I can contribute, and I'm proud to do it. And it's my favorite point of every single match. They do it every match. They play both teams. They play their anthem, and it's powerful.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, man. The national anthem is special to me. I lost many friends, over while I was in the military, either in training or over there. Yep. And to me, to hear the national anthem is special to me. So I can't imagine playing for your country. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. So, all right, well, we'll wrap it up. Make sure you join Convene, obviously, and when you do, go straight in and join Charles's group, because you'll get all the information about where he's training. Go in and take his scenarios, and obviously, like I said before, if you got questions, he's the guy. He's Convene. Make sure you go, click on his profile and make sure you follow him as well, and get the latest and greatest on what he's got going on. So, Charles, I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you and growing Convene First Responders. Thank you.
Look forward to it too, dude. And look, everybody out there, also, if you want to have your own course out there, that's what this is about. It's not just me. All I do is kind of help guide people into different groups, and I have my own group, and that's great. But if you are interested in doing your own course, it's literally cheap to do your course into this program. So, give that a consideration. If you have if you have a group that you want to create, SWAT. I don't think I've heard SWAT yet. I mean, if you're a SWAT guy and you want to create a group and talk about that if you're a sniper group with a PD department, if you're a lieutenant trying to make captain, make a lieutenant trying to make captain group. It's a fantastic platform.
Well, I hope, that's so important. And I would like to say that I think that Convene is the cheapest application out there on the market, where you can create your own training, charge through whatever price you want to charge, create your own syllabus within your groups, and the groups are dynamic groups. And I think it's the best, thing for back and forth and scenario-based training that there is out there on the market. There's no doubt about it in my mind. So please join. Please bring your courses, bring your experiences to Convene. I think it's good. We're only here to facilitate, and help it grow. So that's good. Tactical medicine, you can just go on and on about the different expertise that we need to to bring in to Convene. So we'll be doing that. All right, man. Thank you. Good luck overseas. And,
thanks for having me, buddy.
And we're going to grow this. All right. Thank you.